The water dragon folded itself around Mira before Vera's scepter could touch her. Its liquid body rose like a shield of black glass, and the broken lake scepter struck the curve of its neck with a sound that split the rain. Silver light burst outward. The nobles staggered. The guards threw up their arms. For one instant, the entire shore flashed white, and Mira saw everything as the lake saw it. Not people, not titles, not gowns or armor, but records. Everybody became a page. Every oath became a stain. Every silence had a shape. Vera's was enormous. It spread behind her like a second robe, black and layered, stitched with signatures, sealed mouths, drowned hands, and the pale outlines of women pressed flat beneath law. The priestess did not merely protect the ritual. She was built from it. Every year she had stood beside the lake and called another death sacred. The lake had written it somewhere inside her. Mira cried out as the vision tore through her. Kaelin caught the edge of the water dragon's claw with his unmarked hand and pulled himself higher, ignoring the way the royal seal burned through his right palm. Mira. His voice reached her through the storm. Not as command. As anchor. She turned toward him, shaking so hard she could hardly keep herself upright. The names along her arms were no longer still. They moved like minnows beneath skin, darting toward her throat, her chest, the hollow beneath her collarbone where the red heart under the lake had called to her. Vera smiled when she saw it. There, the priestess whispered. The archive is entering the vessel. Kaelin's expression darkened. Say that word again, and I will remove your tongue before the lake does. The threat should have sounded savage. Instead, it sounded controlled, and that made it far more dangerous. Yet, Mira flinched anyway, because even his protection had sharp edges. Men had protected kingdoms by drowning women. Men had protected thrones by sealing mouths. Men could protect a girl until she became another locked room. She looked at him. Do not threaten for me. His eyes struck hers. For a heartbeat, the storm narrowed around them. Then Kaelin lowered his sword. Not because Vera deserved mercy, because Mira had asked for restraint. That choice moved through the court more powerfully than fire. A king had obeyed the drowned servant girl in front of every noble house in Dracarin. Vera saw the danger at once. You mistake defiance for wisdom. She does not understand what she carries. No, Mira said, and her voice scraped out of her like broken glass. I understand enough. The water dragon's head bent close, its glowing eye larger than her whole body. Within that eye, Mira saw the first water witness again, the woman covered in silver script, holding the newborn lake dragon against her breast. She had not looked afraid in the memory. She had looked tired of being useful to men who feared truth, tired of surviving only to be turned into function. Mira pressed one hand against her chest as the names surged there. You want to seal the archive inside me. Vera's face settled into something almost tender. I want to save a kingdom from collapse. By making me disappear while still breathing, a living seal is stronger than a dead one. The words chilled the shore more than the rain. Kaelin stepped forward, but Mira lifted her hand. He stopped. The motion cost him. She saw it in his jaw, in the tension of his shoulders, in the fury he forced back because this moment could not belong to his need to make amends. It had to belong to her refusal. Mira turned toward the nobles. All her life, the court had been a wall of lowered eyes and closed doors. Now they stared at her because the lake had made her impossible to ignore. She wanted to hate them all. Perhaps part of her did. But beneath the hatred lay something older, borrowed from the women whose names burned beneath her skin. They did not want worship. They wanted record. The lake is not asking you to kneel, Mira said, her voice trembling but clear. It is asking you to read. A noble lord in green velvet spat into the rain. We owe no obedience to water wearing a servant's face. Before Kaelin could move, one of the names on Mira's arm flashed. The lord's own family crest appeared beneath it, drawn in silver water. Then came an image above the lake. A young woman with the same crest stitched to her sleeve, dragged to the shore 50 years earlier while begging for her brother. The lord went gray. His wife stepped away from him. That small movement spread like a crack through ice. Another name lit. Another house. Another drowned woman. The lake did not accuse randomly. It answered lineage with memory. One by one, noble families saw the women their histories had removed. Not all at once. Not enough to collapse the whole court into chaos, but enough to make every person understand the archive could open any door next. Vera raised the broken scepter again. Enough. The preserved finger inside twitched violently, Queen Maris's ring pulling toward Kaelin's marked hand. But the scepter did not obey Vera as cleanly now. Cracks ran along its length, spilling pale light and black water. Kaelin looked at the dead queen's ring on his hand. Mother. The word was barely sound. The ring pulsed once. Then Maris's voice came through it, faint but unmistakable. Do not seal her, my son. Kaelin closed his eyes as if the voice had struck him harder than any blade. When he opened them, the gold had returned, but there was grief inside it now. Not rage alone. Vera's expression broke. Maris was sentimental. Sentiment nearly destroyed us. No, Mira said. Truth frightened you because truth would make payment impossible. The red heart beneath the lake beat again. This time the pulse did not drag Mira downward. It spread outward through the ritual stones. The black lake began to lower, not retreating, but revealing. Stone steps emerged beneath the water, descending into the split lake bed toward the ancient heart. Veda went rigid. Kaelin saw her fear. What is down there? Mira already knew. Not the answer. The invitation. The first water witness's voice rose inside her, tired and clear. Bring the seal-bearer below. Mira looked at Kaelin's marked hand, then at the steps opening into the drowned dark. Every instinct told her not to go into the lake again. Her lungs remembered. Her bones remembered. Her anger remembered the half-step. Kaelin did not reach for her. He only said, I will not ask you to trust me. Mira looked at him through rain, names, and the breath of dead queens. Good, she said, because I do not. Then she stepped down from the water dragon's claw onto the first exposed stair. Behind her, the lake closed over the shore like a door. And below, the ancient heart opened a red eye. Aurelith had come to expose a hidden pass. The mountain had exposed a grave. The first dead name burned beneath her fingertips before she could pull away. Aurelith Vale. Her brother. Aurelith stopped breathing. The war hall blurred into sound. Armor shifting, torches hissing, men swallowing fear behind rank and title. She did not need sight to know. Every general was staring at the name. But the worst silence came from the other side of the map. Alpha King Ronan Kaelor had read it before she could hide her hand. Aurelith, he said. She curled her fingers back from the glowing letters. The stone followed her. The name rose higher, refusing to be abandoned. Aurelith Vale. Beneath it, smaller lines formed. Starvation under Western Ridge. Buried without pack right. Reported as winter fever. Her brother had been 17 when the palace record arrived. Winter fever, it had said. No body returned. No farewell wolf song. Just a wax-stamped notice and a sack of grain, as if a life could be folded into winter ration. Her mother had held that notice for 3 days without speaking. Then she had burned every road map in their house. Roads lie, she had whispered. Mountains remember. Lord Marshal Varric's voice struck the hall like a whip. Enemy fabrication. Aurelith laughed once. It was not a happy sound. Varric turned toward her. You find treason amusing, Maid? No, she said. I find it desperate. His armor shifted closer. Ronan's voice cut across the table. Do not approach her. Varric stopped. The order did not comfort her. Ronan had protected the space around her only after placing her inside the danger. The map pulsed beneath her hand. Another name rose beside Elian's. Then another. Then more. Stone did not write the dead like a list. It wrote them like wounds. Each name broke through a ridge, a trench, a buried road, a collapsed ravine. Some names came with wolf marks, some with servant marks, some with only the faint pressure of hands that had once dug frozen earth until blood filled the nails. Ronan leaned over the table. Read them. Aurelith pulled her hand away. No. The word shocked the generals more than the moving mountains had. Ronan went silent. Her palm still throbbed with her brother's death. Every name wanted passage through her skin. Every buried truth dragged memory with it. Ronan spoke carefully. Why? Because each one hurts. Varric seized the opening. There. Hysteria. The girl cannot distinguish pain from prophecy. The map answered him. A sharp crack split the western ridge, and a new line carved itself beneath the dead names. Ordered silence. The hall chilled. A tiny carved trench opened beside the hidden pass. Stone figures appeared inside it. Men on their knees, wolves curled beside them, wagons half buried in snow. A road had been cut through the mountain not by honored engineers, but by bodies forced to dig until their hands failed. Aurelith touched one figure and nearly fell. Not soldier. Labouré. Road labor. Her brother had not joined the campaign. He had been taken to build it. They were not all soldiers, she whispered. Ronan's breath changed. What were they? Road labor. Supply wolves. Quarry sons. Lower pack men. Anyone the War Office could lose without weakening a noble house. The Western Road had not been built through the mountain. It had been built through people. The map burned hotter. More causes appeared. Starvation. Collapsed trench. Denied fire. Pack right withheld. Winter fever report filed. The phrase repeated under name after name. Winter fever. Winter fever. Winter fever. Aurelith's grief found shape. She laid her palm flat on the glowing stone, though pain shot up her arm. Who signed the winter fever reports? Varric inhaled sharply. Too sharply. The map heard. A path of light raced from the western ridge to the campaign records carved into removable stone plates. One plate shook violently, lifted into the air, and turned upright. Ronan read it aloud. Each word colder than the last. Report of winter loss. Western Road labor units. Fever casualties confirmed. Bodies unrecoverable by storm condition. Signed under campaign authority. He stopped. Aurelith turned her face toward him. Whose authority? No one spoke. The stone plate ground open. Beneath the official line, another layer emerged. Not ink, but weight. Memory. A heated seal. A signet pressed into stone. Ronan's voice lowered. Varric. The marshal snapped. Every report passed through the War Office. Every seal was lawful. That is not what she asked, Ronan said. The table drew Aurelith's hand toward the plate. Her fingertips touched the hidden seal. The mountain showed her a windowless room. Men bent over reports. Varric's rings striking stone. A clerk weeping as names were scraped into fever lists. Laborers bound in iron walking toward the western ridge. And Elian, not as sight, but as shape remembered by stone. The weight of his boots, the pressure of his hand on a shovel, the way he had leaned once against a cold wall and whispered their mother's name. Aurelith's knees weakened. Ronan moved as if to catch her. Do not touch me, she said. He stopped. Good. Pain did not make her a thing to be steadied without permission. The map dragged the memory forward. Elian had been ordered to help open the hidden pass. When the workers realized the road led not to defense but to a concealed entry for an army, they refused to dig deeper. The trench was sealed. Food withheld. Fire denied. Their deaths were renamed fever before their bodies froze. Aurelith pressed her palm harder to the stone. Roads lie, she whispered. The mountain answered through her bones. Mountains remember. The war table shook. Every false road dimmed. Every buried trench glowed. Every winter fever report plate lifted from the table, forming a ring of stone records around the generals. Ronan stood in the center of that ring, and for the first time he sounded less like a king than a man, realizing the floor beneath him had been hollowed out. How many? The map did not answer with a number. It answered with names. Too many. Aurelith kept her palm down while each one burned through her. She would not read them all aloud now. The dead had waited years. They deserved more than being spilled into a room that had profited from not knowing them. Varric's voice turned dangerous. This proves nothing except that the king's campaign records were tampered with. The king's campaign records? Ronan asked. Varric took one step back. Your Majesty, consider who benefits from making you doubt your own command. The map pulsed. Aurelith felt another layer rising. Deeper. Heavier. No. She whispered. Ronan heard. What is it? The table dragged her fingers toward the oldest carved command plate, placed at the head of the Western campaign route. Her fingertips met the command line. The entire war hall went dark except for the map. A new order carved itself in white light. Open Western Ridge under false march. Redirect labor through fever rolls. Silence local witnesses. Aurelith's pulse thundered in her ears. Then the seal appeared beneath the order. Not Varric's. Not a marshal's mark. The Alpha King's wolf crest burned into the stone. The hall held its breath. The map wrote the next order in stone. It bore the Alpha King's seal. The Alpha King's seal did not prove Ronan had ordered the deaths. It proved the deaths had been made lawful in his name. A blade in a murderer's hand was one kind of evil. A seal pressed into stone could kill without ever seeing the snow, the hunger, or the boys forced to dig until their fingers split. The war hall held its breath around the glowing wolf crest. Aurelith could not see it, but she felt the room bow to it. Lord Marshal Varric found his voice first. "Your Majesty," he said, each word sharpened by opportunity. "Shall we arrest the mountain for accusing the crown?" Aurelith pulled her hand away from the command plate. The seal burned more than the names had. Names hurt like wounds. The seal hurt like a door closing. Ronan did not deny it quickly enough. She turned her blind face toward him. "Say it is false." The chamber went utterly still. "That seal is mine," Ronan said. The map answered with a low tremor. Aurelith's palm curled against her side. "Then which part of this order did you not know?" Several generals shifted as if she had drawn steel. Ronan did not rebuke her. That made her angrier. A king who did not deny guilt still stood above everyone else while the dead lay under his road. Varric stepped forward. "Every campaign requires emergency authority. The Western March moved under royal seal. The king cannot be asked to examine every wagon, every labor roll, every minor report in wartime." "No," Aurelith said. "But the mountain can." The map pulsed beneath her words. Ronan's voice lowered. "Touch the seal again. You ask easily. I know. You know the seal is yours. You do not know what it cost to read who died beneath it." Then Ronan said, "What do you require?" The question stopped her. It was late, and late questions did not clean graves, but it was still a question. Kings preferred commands. Aurelith took a slow breath. "No one speaks while the mountain reads." Ronan turned from the table. "No one speaks." Varric started. "Your Majesty." Ronan's voice cut clean. "That includes you." The marshal fell silent. Aurelith placed her fingertips on the wolf crest again. Pain shot up her arm. Royal stone remembered deeper than mountain stone, and it took more from the hand that asked. The first thing it took was warmth. Cold spread through her fingertips, as if stone were entering the skin. Her nails hardened. The pads of her fingers numbed. Then the memory seized her. A campaign chamber before dawn. Torch smoke. Sealed dispatch boxes. A blank stone authority plate waiting open on a table. Blank. That was the first wrongness. The seal had been pressed before the order was written. Aurelith traced the memory carefully. The seal was real. Varric exhaled as if victorious. But the command was not there when it was sealed. The room changed. Ronan stepped closer. "Say that again." The wolf crest was pressed onto blank campaign authority. Her fingers stiffened more deeply. Royal memory pulled not only through pain, but through her own memories. Elian's voice slipped farther away, as if the stone wanted the shape of him as payment. Aurelith's breath broke. No, the mountain had already taken his body. It would not take the memory of his voice. She forced her hand flat. The command plate flared brighter. Royal campaign authority granted. Then the stone ground opened beneath that line. Open Western Ridge under false march. Redirect labor through fever rolls. Silence local witnesses. Aurelith understood. The seal had made the plate powerful. The War Office had made it murderous. One hand had given blank authority. Another had filled in the grave. Ronan understood too. She heard it in his breath. A crown did not need to know every grave to own the road above it. Ronan spoke quietly. "How many blank authorities carried my seal?" The map did not answer. Varric did. Enough to win. Every general heard. Ronan turned toward him. Varric straightened, abandoning denial for justification. The Western campaign was collapsing. Messages were delayed. Border wolves were starving. Authority had to move faster than ceremony. So you filled blank orders with labor conscription and false death reports, Ronan said. I preserved the campaign. You opened a pass for an enemy army. I opened a road we could control. The mountain groaned. Aurelith touched the map's edge to steady herself. The land did not care for strategies that renamed graves as roads. Ronan's voice hardened. Who carried the blank seal? Varric answered too quickly. The War Office. Aurelith lifted her face. That is not a hand. The map warmed beneath her. She placed both palms on the command plate. Pain surged through her fingers, but she held. Show me. The western ridge dimmed. The hidden pass disappeared. The dead names sank below the surface. Not gone. Only waiting. Then the war table shifted its attention north, toward the throne dais. Aurelith felt palace stone wake beneath the map. Steps, wolf, carved railings, a private chamber below the dais where royal seals were kept when the king rode north. Ronan went still. What is beneath my throne? No one answered. The map opened. A narrow stair. Cold iron. Oil lamps. The pressure of someone walking there, often enough for the floor to remember him. Someone trusted. Someone who did not need to break in. A hand reached into a seal chest and lifted a blank campaign plate. The hand wore a wolf ring. Not the king's seal ring. A blood-right ring. Heavy. Familiar. Royal. Ronan's voice lost warmth. No. Aurelith felt the pain in that word but did not soften. Pain was not proof of innocence. The hand turned. On the ring was the king's own wolf mark. Not as crown seal, but as blood-right, a ring worn only by those allowed to carry the king's authority outside his sight. Aurelith spoke before Ronan could hide from it. If the ring is blood, right? She said. Then this is not only treason. It is family. Varric was silent now. Too silent. Ronan's breathing changed. Theron. The name dropped into the room like a stone into a grave. Ronan Kaelor. Ronan's half-brother. Former war heir. The man the king had trusted with campaign authority when he rode north to hold the border. Aurelith's hardened fingers trembled against the map. You gave him the ring? Ronan did not answer quickly enough. That was answer. He had not written the grave road, but he had given someone he loved the hand that could. The war hall seemed to shrink around him. Varric's voice returned, careful and venomous. Your Majesty, family matters should not be dragged before generals by a blind servant and a treasonous table. Ronan turned toward the throne dais. Aurelith knew the choice before he spoke. Protect the crown's private shame, or break open the seal room before every man who had served under its lie. Ronan looked toward her. Can the mountain show him? Her fingers were numb past the first knuckle now. Stone memory crawled under her skin. If she read much longer, she feared she would not know whether she stood in the war hall or under the western ridge with Elian dying in snow. Yes, she said. But it will take more. Ronan's voice lowered. From you. Royal Stone always does. He was silent for one breath. Then he turned to the guards. Open the throne dais. Varric stepped forward. Your Majesty, that chamber is sealed by blood law. Ronan did not look at him. Then blood law will answer for what it hid. The guards hesitated. Ronan removed a ring from his own hand and threw it onto the war table. The metal struck stone. Aurelith heard every general inhale. Open it, Ronan said. The throne dais cracked. Stone steps unfolded from beneath the king's seat. Descending into darkness, the map's memory rose higher, spilling into the room as cold white light. Boots first, then a cloak, then a hand carrying the blank seal, then the wolf ring. Ronan whispered, Theron. But the memory did not remain beneath the throne. It turned, toward the war hall doors, toward the living. Aurelith went still. The stone was not showing a dead trail. It was following a present weight. The map finished the memory. The man who carried the blank seal was standing inside the war hall, and Ronan had called him brother. Theron Kaelor did not step out of the crowd like a traitor. He stepped forward like a man tired of letting others pretend they had not benefited from him. The war hall changed around his movement. Not loudly. Not with gasps and drawn swords, though Aurelith heard hands falling toward hilts. It changed in the smaller ways power revealed itself. Armor settling into obedience. Breath catching before denial. Men shifting aside without being ordered, because some bodies had been trained to make room for royal blood. Theron's boots struck the stone with calm precision. Ronan did not speak at first. That silence told Aurelith more than grief would have. He had recognized the footsteps before the mountain gave the memory a face. Theron, Ronan said at last. The name carried brotherhood, warning, and something wounded enough to be dangerous. Theron stopped beside the western edge of the war table. He did not reach for a weapon. He did not plead innocence. He did not even glance at the glowing map as if it frightened him. That was what made Aurelith's skin go cold. He was not afraid of the mountain. A man who feared truth denied it quickly. Theron stood before it as if truth were only another battlefield to arrange. Brother, Theron said. Ronan's voice stayed low. You carried blank campaign authority from the seal chamber. Theron looked at the stone memory still hovering over the map. The hand, the wolf ring, the blank plate. Yes. The admission dropped cleanly into the hall. Several generals inhaled. Vodek did not. Aurelith heard that too. Ronan's silence sharpened. You gave it to Varric. I gave the War Office what it needed to win. You gave them my seal. I gave them speed. Aurelith felt the map pulse under her numbing fingers. Speed. That word had covered too many graves already. Varric stepped forward, trying to reclaim command. Your Majesty. Prince Theron acted under emergency necessity. The campaign would have failed without flexible authority. Theron glanced at him. Only once. It was enough to cut the marshal quiet. Do not dress yourself in my choices, Varric, Theron said. You used what I permitted. The war hall went colder. There it was. Note accident. Permission. Aurelith pressed her hand harder to the war table. The stone had begun creeping past her fingertips now, whitening the skin around her nails. Royal memory had taken warmth. War memory had taken feeling. If she held much longer, her hands might become part of the map that had finally learned her name. Ronan noticed. His hand moved slightly toward her. Aurelith turned her face in his direction before he could touch her. Do not touch what your seal already took. The words struck him harder than a slap. He stopped. Good. If he wanted to help her, he would have to learn there were wounds kings did not get to steady with their hands. Theron's voice softened with a cruel imitation of reason. She is poisoning you against your own command. No, Aurelith said. The mountain is showing what your command buried. Theron's attention shifted to her. For the first time, she felt the full weight of him, not like Varric's contempt. Not like Ronan's guarded command. Theron regarded her as a problem with shape, cost, and timing. Something to remove if not useful. Study if not removable. And crush if too many eyes turn toward her. A blind maid stands at a war table and calls herself the voice of a mountain, Theron said. How convenient that dead men speak only through her hand. Aurelith smiled without warmth. How convenient that living men call the dead liars. The map warmed beneath her. Theron did not move. Ronan did, one step closer to his brother. How many roads? Theron looked at him. Enough. Aurelith turned her palm over the western ridge. The stone pulled. Her wrist locked. Pain shot up her arm, sharper than before, deep enough to make her knees tremble. The stone was not only numbing her fingers now, it was climbing her wrist, a cold gray stiffness beneath the skin. Royal stone remembered deeper than mountain stone, and it took more from the hand that asked. Still, she asked, how many roads did Theron bury? The map answered at once. The western ridge split into lines of light. Not one road. Not 3, 7. 7 hidden routes unfolded beneath the carved mountains. Each one threading through false fever reports, missing labor rolls, erased wolf patrols, abandoned supply trenches. Names rose with them, not as many as before, enough to make the hall stagger under the truth. Road of winter fever, road of silenced patrols, road of no pack right, road of starved labor, road of false march, road of buried wagons, road of open enemy pass. Theron watched the roads rise with no shame in his breathing. Ronan's voice was quiet. 7. Theron finally showed anger. 7 roads kept the northern border from collapsing. 7 roads fed an enemy army into my flank. No, Theron said sharply. 1 road did. The others kept your throne standing long enough for you to sit on it. Aurelith felt Ronan's pain in the silence that followed. Theron knew where to strike because he had once been allowed close. You rode north with honor, Theron continued. You made speeches to freezing soldiers. You held the ridge everyone could see. Someone had to manage the roads beneath. With laborers stolen from lower packs? Ronan asked. With bodies the noble houses would not miss. The words landed like a stone in a shallow grave. Even Vark shifted. Aurelith's breath went cold. Theron had not misspoken. He had clarified. Ronan's voice lowered. You will kneel. Theron laughed softly. Before a map? Before the dead. The dead do not hold borders. No, Aurelith said. They hold memory. The war table shook. A line of light raced beneath Theron's boots. For the first time, his confidence faltered. Not enough. But Aurelith heard it. The land beneath the hall had recognized his weight. Theron lifted one hand, and several guards at the western wall moved. Not Ronan's central guard. War office men, Varik's men, Theron's men. Seize the land witch, Theron said. She is poisoning royal command. Steel scraped free. Ronan turned. The hall froze. Aurelith could not see his blade drawn. But she heard it. The soft, final whisper of metal, leaving a king's sheath. Touch her, Ronan said. And lose the hand. Theron's silence sharpened. Against your brother? He asked. Against the hand that used my name to bury mine. You think protecting her cleans you? The question should not have mattered. It did. Aurelith felt Ronan's attention flicker toward her, not seeking forgiveness, but bracing for the answer he already deserved. She gave it before Theron could twist the room. It does not. The words were quiet, clear. Ronan did not flinch away. Good, Theron smiled. Even your blind witness knows you are not innocent. No, Ronan said. But she is not yours to silence. He stepped between Aurelith and the War Office guards. The room shifted around that choice. Not enough to heal anything. Enough to begin a cost. Ronan drew his blade against his own brother. The mountain opened beneath Aurelith's feet. Stone split under the war table and under the floor, not breaking the hall, but opening a deep white seam that breathed cold from the western ridge itself. The names on the map sank into that seam. The roads dimmed. The dead drew closer. Then a voice rose from below. Young. Hoarse. Remembered by stone. Aurelith's heart stopped. Elian. Her brother's voice came through the mountain like breath under snow. Do not let them make him innocent yet. Elian Vale's voice did not rise from the mountain to comfort his sister. It rose to stop the room from lying again. Aurelith stood frozen above the white seam opened beneath the war table. Her stone-stiffened hand still pressed to the map while cold from the western ridge breathed around her ankles. The voice was young, hoarse, and worn thin by hunger. Not alive. Not exactly dead either. Remembered. Held in the mountain the way pain could be held in bone, long after the wound closed. Do not let them make him innocent yet. The words moved through the war hall like snow under a door. No general spoke. No guard moved. Even Theron Kaelor's men held their blades half-raised, caught between royal blood and mountain witness. Ronan stood between Aurelith and the War Office guards with his blade drawn against his half-brother. He did not look back at her. Good. If he had turned for absolution, she might have hated him more. Instead, he kept his eyes on Theron. I did not ask to be made innocent, Ronan said. Aurelith's throat tightened despite herself. Theron laughed once, low and cruel. How noble. A king admits guilt after the grave gives him an audience. The mountain answered him with a tremor. The seam beneath Aurelith's feet widened by a finger's breadth. Beneath the stone floor, she felt not emptiness but depth-packed snow. Buried tools, wolf bones, frozen wagon wheels, hands wrapped in rags, mouths too weak to howl. The western ridge had not brought the dead into the war hall for spectacle. It had brought them because the hall had ordered their silence. Aurelith lowered her face toward the seam. Elian. Her brother's voice came again, softer this time. Roads lie. She breathed through pain. Mountains remember. The map pulsed under her palm. Then it pulled. Aurelith gasped as the white seam dragged memory through her fingers. Not one memory now. Many. The 7 roads Theron had buried rose beneath her skin, each one cutting cold into her wrist. Her fingertips had already hardened. Now the stone reached the bones of her hand. If she kept reading, she might not be able to let go. Ronan heard the change in her breath. Aurelith. Do not. He stopped before stepping closer. She hated that he was learning. She hated that part of her noticed. Theron took advantage of the pause. Look at her, Ronan. Your witness is breaking. The mountain consumes its own mouth. Will you build justice on a servant girl turning to stone? Aurelith smiled faintly through the pain. Better stone than a throne that does not feel what it stands on. Theron's voice chilled. Seize her. Ronan raised his blade. But Aurelith spoke first. No. The words struck the map. The white seam stopped widening. The War Office guards halted, not because they feared her body, but because the floor beneath them had begun to remember their weight. Aurelith felt each man suddenly. Boots used on western stone. Spurs that had crossed fever roads. Blood dried in grooves. No water had reached. The mountain did not need sight. Neither did she. You cannot drag me from the table, she said. Not while the floor remembers. Who carried orders over the dead. One guard dropped his sword. Then another. Theron's jaw tightened. Varric looked at him now with less confidence. The marshal had expected Theron's protection. He had not expected the mountain to keep reading living feet. Aurelith turned her face toward Ronan's voice. Lower your blade. The hall went still. Ronan did not move. Theron smiled. Yes, brother. Obey the maid. Aurelith's hand burned colder against the map. I said lower it. Not yield. Ronan understood. Slowly, he lowered the sword point from Theron's throat. The generals exhaled too soon. Then Ronan turned the blade and drove it into the war table beside the Alpha seal. Stone cracked. The wolf crest split down the middle. A sound tore through the hall not from men but from the map itself. Every blank authority hidden beneath royal stone shuddered. Every road Theron had used flared in white light. The seal had been weaponized as law. Now the king had wounded his own symbol before the witnesses it had buried. Ronan's voice carried through the chamber. No order sealed in my name will stand until the mountain reads what it carried. Theron went still. That, finally, frightened him. Not because Ronan threatened him. Because Ronan had cut open the crown's convenience. Varric snapped. Your Majesty, you will collapse the campaign. Ronan looked toward him. Then it was standing on graves. Aurelith's breath shook. Elian's voice moved under the floor. Not innocent yet. Ronan heard it. His jaw tightened, but he did not defend himself. Good. The map did not need remorse. It needed answer. Aurelith pressed her palm harder to the stone, though pain flashed white behind the blindfold. Show the orders that used the broken seal. The map opened. One by one, command plates rose from beneath the table. 7 roads, 7 authorities, 7 routes dressed as strategy, and fed by bodies no noble house would miss. Each plate carried the cracked wolf crest, now split by Ronan's blade. Each bore another hand beneath it. Vadics, Therons, quartermasters, border captains, clerks, priests who recorded fever, lords who accepted clear roads and asked no questions. The guilt widened beyond one villain. That was what made it heavier. Theron saw the danger and changed tactics. You want names? He said. Then take them all. Every house that sent fewer sons because laborers could dig. Every commander who praised fast roads. Every lord who celebrated victory feasts while the western ridge swallowed workers. Arrest me, and you leave half your council beside me. Aurelith listened. There it was. Not confession. Hostage truth. Theron had made guilt wide enough to become shield. Ronan said nothing. Aurelith did. Then the mountain will not stop at you. The war table shook again. Theron turned toward her, and for the first time, anger stripped the elegance from his voice. You think the dead want justice? The dead want witnesses. Give them enough, and they will eat your hand, your memories, your brother's face, until you are nothing but stone with a girl's name carved on it. The words struck too close. Elian's voice had already thinned in her mind. She could still remember the pressure of his hand guiding hers over a river stone. could still remember him laughing when she mistook a goat for a wolf pup by sound, but the edges were blurring under the mountain's hunger. Royal Stone remembered deeper, and it took more. Aurelith's wrist hardened completely. She bit back a cry. Ronan heard it anyway. This time he did not step toward her. He turned to the room. "Who among you signed a fever road?" No one answered. Ronan pulled his blade from the table and dragged its edge across his own palm. Blood fell onto the cracked wolf crest. Aurelith felt the map recoil. King's blood. Not as command. As payment. "I signed none knowingly," Ronan said. "But my seal made them lawful. My blood will pay the mountain for one question she should not have to bleed for." Aurelith went still. The pain in her wrist eased. Not gone. Eased. The mountain accepted the payment. Theron's face changed. Ronan looked toward Aurelith. "Ask." She understood the cost of that single word. It did not make him innocent. It made him answerable. So she asked the question that mattered most. "Who is still alive beneath the road?" The mountain fell silent. Then the war table changed. Not names of the dead this time. Heartbeats. Faint. Buried. Hidden under the 7th road. Aurelith's breath caught. There were survivors. Not many. Enough. Elian's voice rose once more, strained with distance. "We were not all buried." The western ridge split open across the map, revealing a hidden stone chamber beneath the false pass. Inside it, men and wolves breathed in darkness. And one living heartbeat carried Aurelith's family mark. The living heartbeat beneath the 7th road carried Aurelith's family mark. Not Elian's. Something older. The map pressed it into her palm like a pulse trying to climb out of stone. 3 small strikes, a pause, then one slow beat. Vale rhythm. The signal her mother had once tapped against the hearth wall when she wanted Aurelith and Elian to come home without letting the neighbors hear fear. Aurelith could not breathe. There should have been no living Vale beneath the western ridge. There should have been no one left under a road recorded as complete, sealed, and dead. Ronan's blood still darkened the cracked wolf crest on the map, holding back some of the pain turning Aurelith's wrist to stone. Not enough to free her. Enough to let her ask one more question. "Who is it?" she whispered. The mountain answered with breath. A hidden chamber opened across the war table in cold white light. Inside it, figures lay against stone walls, thin as winter branches, wrapped in torn cloaks and old wolf pelts. Men. Wolves half-shifted from hunger. Bodies barely moving. At the center, one woman sat upright with her back against a carved support beam, one hand pressed to the chamber wall as if she had been tapping messages into the mountain for years. Aurelith felt the shape of that hand. Long fingers, broken knuckles, the old quarry scar across the thumb. Her mother. The war hall tilted beneath her. "Mother." Theron moved first. "Seal the map." Varric's men surged toward the table, but the floor remembered them. Stone rose around their boots, trapping them in shallow grooves. Theron's voice sharpened. "She is fabricating survivors to turn the crown against its own campaign." Aurelith turned her blind face toward him. "You buried them alive. I contained a compromised labor unit. They are breathing. They are evidence." The word was colder than murder. Ronan stepped toward Theron, but his brother lifted a hand. "If you arrest me before securing the ridge, every commander loyal to the Northern Campaign will hear that the Alpha King chose a blind maid's mountain fever over his own blood." Aurelith felt Ronan hesitate. Not because he doubted her, because Theron had named the next battlefield. Control. Her mother's heartbeat tapped again through the map. 3 small strikes. A pause. One slow beat. Alive. Waiting. Aurelith flattened her palm on the glowing chamber. "How far?" The mountain pulled distance through her bones. Cold. Dark. Downward. Western ridge. 7th road. Under the false pass. Beneath the snow shelf, where enemy wagons had crossed above them. 2 days by the official road, she said. Less through the hidden pass. Varric laughed. Convenient. The same pass she claims is enemy-fed. Aurelith's wrist cracked. Not loudly. Enough for Ronan to hear. His voice changed. "Your hand. Do not make my pain the subject while my mother is under stone." Silence followed. Then Ronan turned to the guards. "Send riders to the western ridge." Theron smiled. Through which road? The public route is too slow. The hidden pass may be enemy, held. Move wrong, and the survivors die before you arrive. Ronan's jaw tightened. Theron had buried people and placed their rescue inside a military trap. The map trembled beneath Aurelith's hand. The mountain wanted to show more. But the price crawled past her wrist toward her forearm. Ronan heard her breath catch. This time he did not offer touch. He offered cost. How do I pay for another reading? Theron's expression flickered. My hand must ask, Aurelith said. Your blood can only keep the mountain from taking all of it. Ronan drew the blade across his palm again. Blood struck the map. The pain eased just enough. Not kindness. Payment. Aurelith placed both hands on the stone. The warhall vanished beneath her fingers. She stood inside the hidden chamber in memory, surrounded by frozen breath, wet fur, old blood, and stone dust. Her mother lifted her head. Letha? Only her family called her that. Aurelith nearly broke. I'm here. No, her mother whispered. You are at the map. Stay there. Who trapped you? Her mother tapped the wall. 3 beats. A warning. Then the chamber shook. Above them, wagons rolled. Enemy wagons. Aurelith felt iron wheels cross the ceiling. The living survivors flinched beneath the road. Theron's route had not only allowed an army through, it had used prisoners as the road's silence. If they cried out, the mountain above them would collapse. Aurelith returned to the war hall with a gasp. The survivors cannot call for help, she said. The road above them will cave in. Ronan's voice was rough. How do we reach them? The map answered. A narrow old quarry vein lit beneath the western ridge. Not the official road, not the enemy pass, but a forgotten passage, twisting under the mountain like a root. It opens from the lower river, Aurelith said. Small passage. No army, no banners, no heavy boots. Theron laughed softly. Then useless. No, Ronan said. Aurelith heard the decision in him. Theron heard it too. A king cannot crawl through an old quarry vein while his war hall fractures. Ronan looked toward Aurelith. Can you guide it from here? Her stone-stiff hands trembled on the map. Yes. The word cost her. The mountain began pulling her deeper. Not into memory now, but into the passage itself. Stone closed around her senses. The war hall dimmed. Her feet felt less like flesh, and more like buried root. The mountain had found its reader. It wanted to keep her as the living guide. Ronan's blade struck the table beside her hand. The sound anchored her. Aurelith, he said. Do not go where I cannot follow. You cannot command stone. No, he said. But I can enter it. The hall went still. Theron's voice cut sharp. Ronan. The Alpha King ignored him. He placed his bleeding palm on the old quarry vein glowing beneath Aurelith's fingers. The map recoiled, not rejecting him, recognizing him as weight, as crown, as danger, as cost. Aurelith felt the mountain ask the question no court had dared ask aloud. Would the king place himself under the road his seal had buried? Ronan answered without looking away from her blindfolded face. Yes. The war table opened beneath his hand. Stone swallowed his blood. Then the old quarry vein lit from the war hall to the western ridge. But under that light, another message carved itself into the map. Only the guilty weight may open the lower way. Ronan's face went still. Theron began to smile. The mountain had not asked for a guide. It had asked for the king to descend under the road his name had made. And if he went, the throne above him would be left in his brother's hands. The mountain did not ask Ronan to confess. It asked him to descend. The words burned beneath his blood on the war table, cold and white. Only the guilty weight may open the lower way. Aurelith felt the sentence through both palms. It did not mean Ronan had ordered every death. It meant his seal had carried enough weight to bury roads, laborers, wolves, and her mother beneath the western ridge. The lower way would not open for innocence. It would open for responsibility. Theron's smile sharpened. How generous of the mountain. It asks the king to crawl under his own war while the kingdom stands above him without a crown. Ronan did not look at him. The crown is not leaving the hall. No, Theron said. Only the man wearing it. Varric shifted near the western side of the table, still half-trapped by remembering stone. Your Majesty, this is military madness. If you enter an unscouted quarry vein beneath an enemy-fed pass, you may die before reaching the ridge. Ronan's voice stayed flat. Then the road will have taken one more thing it is owed. Aurelith turned toward him sharply. No. The word surprised even her. Theron laughed softly. Careful, brother. Your blind witness does not want your noble sacrifice either. Aurelith's stone-stiffened hand burned cold against the map. I do not want another body offered to a road so men can call it balance. Ronan was silent. Good. Let it cut. If you go below, she said, you do not go to die beautifully. You go to open the chamber and bring them out. Ronan answered low. Yes. Not as payment. No. As witness. For one breath, the mountain stilled. Then the old quarry vein brightened. It had accepted the word. The map divided into two paths. One remained beneath Aurelith's hands, the living chamber under the 7th road. The other opened beneath Ronan's blood, the lower river passage. Between them, a thin white line connected reader and descender. The line hooked into Aurelith's wrist. She gasped. The mountain wanted her as guide. A blind Stone-Seer could keep the lower path from closing around the king, but the deeper Ronan went, the more the mountain would pull through her body. Stone had already crawled halfway up her forearm. Ronan heard the pain. How much will it take from you? Aurelith smiled without warmth. Now you ask before using me? The silence after that struck harder than anger. Ronan took it. I am asking now, he said. That did not clean what came before. But it mattered. It may take the rest of my hand, she said. Theron spoke quickly. Then refuse. Let a scout read the path. A scout cannot hear stone. No, Theron said. But a dead maid cannot accuse blood. Ronan's brow lifted. Aurelith pressed her palm down before steel could answer steel. Do not give him battle. That is the rhythm he knows. The mountain pulsed. Roads lie. Mountains remember. Ronan lowered his blade. The lower way glowed brighter. 3 small lights appeared along it. One for Ronan. One for a wolf without armor. One for the hand that reads. Aurelith went still. Varric's voice roughened. The map wants her below too. No, Aurelith whispered. The stone answered through her wrist. Not below. Between. She understood. Her body would stay in the war hall, but part of her senses would walk with Ronan under the mountain. Half here, half below. Dangerous. Maybe survivable. Ronan turned to his central guard. Captain Soren. Hold the hall. Theron smiled. Under whose authority? If the king descends under accusation, war command falls to blood. Right. Ronan looked at him. You forfeited blood, right when the mountain named your hand. Theron lifted his chin. Named by a blind maid's pain. Ronan picked up the cracked wolf ring from the war table. Named by stone, blood, seal, and your own silence. He threw the ring onto the map. The mountain swallowed it. Theron stepped forward. Fury breaking through polish. That ring was not yours to destroy. No, Ronan said. It was mine to regret giving. The lower way brightened again. But Theron turned toward the generals. You hear him. He breaks royal tokens, trusts a land, witch, and crawls into stone while an enemy army waits beyond the ridge. Who follows a king who lets a servant girl guide his blood? No one answered. Not enough. Then a map guard spoke from near the lower wall. I do. His voice shook. My brother was reported winter fever. A servant near the door followed. My son. A quartermaster's aide said. My patrol. Not many. Enough. The war hall did not kneel. It divided. Ronan moved toward the cracked dais stairs, then stopped beside the war table, not touching Aurelith. Close enough that she felt his warmth against the cold in her arm. If the mountain starts taking too much, he said, cut me loose. Aurelith's mouth went dry. And leave you under the road? Yes. No. Aurelith, you do not get to make that my first clean choice. He went silent. You go down as witness, she said. You come back as witness. Or the mountain will remember another king who turned a road into a grave. Ronan exhaled once. I will come back. Not a promise of victory, a promise of answer. He descended. The stone steps swallowed him into darkness. For one terrible moment, the map went cold under Aurelith's hands. Then Ronan's weight appeared beneath the mountain, heavy, guilty, alive. The lower way opened. Aurelith followed him through stone scents. She felt the narrow passage close around his shoulders, the river ice underfoot, the mountain listening to his breath. Above the war table, Theron's voice turned soft. Now. Aurelith snapped her head toward him. Tulate. Varric drove a hidden dagger into the map's western ridge. The glowing quarry vein split. Pain tore through Aurelith's arm. Below, the lower passage buckled around Ronan. The mountain roared, and under the seventh road, her mother's heartbeat began to fade. The dagger did not cut the map. It cut the path through Aurelith's arm. Pain split from her wrist to her shoulder as the glowing quarry vein broke beneath Varric's blade. The war table screamed in stone. The lower river passage shuddered under Ronan's weight. Far beneath the western ridge, the hidden chamber buckled, and her mother's heartbeat stumbled once. Then again. Then weaker. Aurelith nearly lost the war hall. For one breath, she was under the mountain, crushed between two memories. Ronan in the lower passage with stone cracking above him, and her mother in the buried chamber with dust falling over her face. The mountain pulled her toward both, demanding her hand become bridge, guide, witness, and anchor at once. Too much. Her fingers hardened to the second knuckle. Varric ripped the dagger free and raised it again. Hold her, Theron ordered. War Office guards moved. Two broke free from the remembering stone and lunged toward Aurelith's arms. A sharp growl split the hall. A lean gray warwolf leapt between her and the guards, scarred shoulders low, one torn ear flattened, teeth bared beside the cracked quarry vein. The third light. Aurelith understood. One for Ronan. One for a wolf without armor. One for the hand that reads. Captain Soren's voice rang out. Back from the seer. Theron's voice sharpened. You choose a blind maid over royal blood, Captain? Soren answered. I choose the king's order. Aurelith pressed her bleeding stone wrist harder to the map. Below, Ronan braced one hand against the passage wall as stone cracked around him. She felt his breath, his blood, his guilty weight pressing deeper into the lower way. Aurelith. His voice came through the stone. The path is closing. I know. Cut me loose. No. Varric drove the dagger toward the map again. The gray wolf lunged. Steel scraped stone instead of flesh. The dagger skidded across the western ridge, carving a black wound through two dead names. Aurelith screamed as the names burned through her palm, not because they were erased, but because the mountain refused erasure and pushed them into her memory to keep them safe. Too many. Too much. Elian's voice flickered at the edge of her mind. Litha. She seized it like a rope. Roads lie, she whispered. The map pulsed weakly. Mountains remember. The white seam beneath the war table widened. Cold rose from it, carrying buried breaths. Aurelith felt her mother's hand tapping inside the chamber. 3 small strikes. A pause. 1 slow beat. Alive. Not for long. Aurelith turned her face toward Theron's voice. You cut the path because you need them to die before Ronan reaches them. Theron did not deny it. Dead survivors cannot contradict a campaign ledger. And living ones can name you. Living ones can be called delirious. Starved. Compromised. His boots moved closer. But if the mountain eats its reader before they speak, the court will remember only confusion. Aurelith smiled faintly, though pain shook her mouth. Then I should speak faster. She placed her left palm over the dagger wound in the map. Stone climbed another inch up her forearm. The hall blurred. Ronan's passage. Her mother's chamber. The war table. 3 truths pulled against her body. She could not hold them separately, so she stopped trying. Aurelith lowered her forehead toward the map. Mountain, she whispered. Do not use me as the road. Use what they broke. Varric laughed. She begs stone now. No, Soren said. She is asking correctly. The map answered. The dagger wound opened deeper. Black metal from Varric's blade had left a mark inside the map. A foreign weight. A weapon used to break witness. The mountain seized that weight. Varric gasped. His dagger heated red in his hand. The broken quarry vein turned toward the blade's memory and followed it back not through Aurelith but through the hand that had cut the path. Varek screamed. Every hidden order he had carried burned across his gauntlet. Every route he had altered. Every fever roll he had signed. Every labor unit he had marked expendable. The map used his own sabotage as a bridge. Below, the lower passage steadied. Ronan moved. Aurelith felt him advance under the mountain. One careful step, then another. The gray werewolf lowered its head and growled. And far below, she felt its echo padding beside him in stone sense, guiding his turn where the passage split. Ronan's voice came through the stone. "I see a fork." "Left," Aurelith said. Theron snapped. "Do not let her speak." Soren's blade came free. "Touch her, and answer to me." The hall divided further. Aurelith followed Ronan through the lower way. The old quarry vein narrowed around him. He removed his shoulder armor to pass. Good. Banners, armor, and pride had no place under roads built through people. "Lower," she said. "There is a shelf." Ronan dropped. Stone scraped his back. She felt it as fire down her own spine. Then he reached the chamber wall. Her mother's heartbeat fluttered. Ronan pressed his bloody palm to the stone. The mountain did not open. Aurelith froze. Why not? The answer came through the map in a cold pulse. Guilty weight may open the lower way, but the buried must consent to be found. Aurelith's breath caught. Not rescue by force. Even now. Especially now. She turned all her remaining strength toward the chamber. "Mother." The buried heartbeats stirred. "Maid Vale." Aurelith whispered. "It is Litha. Ronan is at the wall. He cannot open it unless you choose to be found." A long silence followed. Theron laughed softly. "What if they choose to die loyal to the grave?" Aurelith ignored him. The tapping came again. 3 strikes. A pause. 1 slow beat. Then her mother's voice rose through the mountain, weak but clear. "We choose to be found." The chamber wall cracked open beneath the 7th road. Air rushed out. Old, frozen, alive. Ronan entered first. Aurelith felt him stop, not from danger, from the sight of what his seal had buried. Men blinked in darkness. Wolves lifted starving heads. A woman with broken knuckles pressed one hand to the wall and whispered Aurelith's childhood name. The map under Aurelith's palms softened for one breath. Then Theron moved. Not toward her. Toward the throne. Aurelith felt his weight leave the war table's edge and climb the cracked dais steps. Ronan was under the mountain. The survivors had chosen witness. And Theron Kaelor was reaching for the crown seat above them all. Aurelith lifted her stone-stiff hand from the map just enough to point toward the dais. "Ronan," she whispered into the lower way. "Your brother is taking the throne." The mountain carried her warning down. But before Ronan could answer, the war table carved one final line beneath her palm. "The lower way opens only once." Aurelith went cold. Ronan could bring the buried out. Or return to stop Theron. Not both. The lower way had chosen mercy before power. That was what the mountain carved into the war table without using those words. It did not ask Ronan whether he wanted his throne back. It did not ask whether Theron's hand was already closing around the crown seat above them. It only opened once. And beneath the 7th road, the living were breathing. Aurelith felt Ronan receive the message through stone. For one breath, his weight in the lower passage went still. Then he moved deeper into the buried chamber. He chose the survivors. The choice passed through the map like a quiet blade. Not enough to make him innocent. Enough to make him useful to the dead. Aurelith turned her face toward the throne dais, where Theron Kaelor's boots climbed the cracked steps. She could not see him reaching for the crown seat. But she felt every stone under his feet wake with old obedience. Palace stone remembered bloodline more easily than truth. It had been polished by generations of kneeling men. Theron knew that. His voice rang across the hall. "The Alpha King has abandoned command beneath the mountain. By blood, right, and emergency war law, I assume the throne until order is restored." The generals shifted. Some in protest, some in relief. That was the danger. Theron did not need everyone to love him. He only needed frightened men to prefer a standing prince over a guilty king underground. Aurelith's stone-stiff hand remained on the map. Her wrist was almost fully gray now, the cold crawling toward her elbow. If she pulled away, Ronan might lose the path. If she stayed, Theron might take the hall before the survivors reached air. Captain Soren stepped between the dais and the room. His gray warwolf stood beside the map, growling low. Theron looked down at him. Move. Soren lifted his sword. No. You would bar royal blood from the throne? I would bar a named gravemaker from command. The hall held its breath. Theron smiled. Named by a mountain. And a blind maid. Aurelith pressed her palm harder to the map. Pain flared, but so did the dead names beneath the western ridge. She understood then what she had missed. The war map was not only a table. It was palace stone laid over mountain stone. The mountain remembered the road. The palace remembered the throne. Both could be made to answer, she whispered. Roads lie. The mountain pulsed. Mountains remember. Then she turned her face toward the dais. And thrones? The stone under Theron's boots cracked. Not deeply. Enough. Aurelith heard him stop. Good. She lowered her other hand to the carved throne symbol on the map. The one above the newly opened stair. The moment her fingertips touched it, royal stone surged into her. Colder than the mountain. Sharper. Hungrier for rank. It did not show graves. It showed knees. Men kneeling. Wolves bowing. Rings placed on hands. Oaths sworn beneath banners. Blank authority passed from trusted blood to war office hands. Theron standing beside Ronan after the northern victory, head bowed in public loyalty, while one thumb turned the wolf ring in private satisfaction. The throne had not been ignorant. It had been convenient. Aurelith gasped as stone climbed past her elbow. Below the mountain, Ronan's voice came through the map. Aurelith. Keep moving, she said. I have them. She felt him now in the chamber, lifting the first survivor, then another. Wolves stirred around his legs, too weak to stand but alive enough to smell open air. Her mother, Maid Vale, pressed one trembling hand to the wall, guiding the buried toward him. Ronan's voice roughened. Your mother is alive. Aurelith's throat closed. No, not yet. If she let relief enter her, she would lose hold of the hall. Theron's voice cut across the room. Enough of this witchcraft. He reached for the crown seat. Aurelith slammed her palm against the throne symbol. Show what the throne accepted. The dais cracked wider. Cold white light rose around Theron's boots, forming memories at his feet. Not memories of the mountain. Memories of the hall. Theron receiving messenger reports. Theron burning labor rolls in a brazier under the throne. Theron telling Varric, let Ronan wear the victory. I will hold the roads that make it possible. The generals saw. Theron's calm finally broke. Lies. The throne stone answered by carving his own words into the dais. Let Ronan wear the victory. I will hold the roads. A murmur moved through the hall. Varric tried to back away, but the map remembered his weight and held him fast. Theron looked toward the generals, voice hardening. You all knew what fast roads cost. Do not pretend horror now because the cost has a face. No one answered quickly. Again, that was the danger. Aurelith felt anger rise so sharply it steadied her. Yes, she said, let them answer too. The map flared. Every command plate around the table turned outward. Not toward Theron alone. Toward the men who had signed supply routes, ignored missing patrols, accepted fever counts, and celebrated clean roads without asking why no laborers returned. The dead did not want one villain. They wanted the road above them named from end to end. Theron took one more step toward the crown seat. Soren moved to block him, but 2 war office guards attacked. The gray wolf lunged. Steel clashed near the dais. Aurelith could not turn away from the map, but she heard Soren grunt as a blade glanced off armor. Below, Ronan carried survivors toward the lower way. Too slow. Above, Theron was almost at the throne. Too close. Aurelith's stone arm began to crack. Elian's voice rose under her palm. Litha. She breathed through the pain. I am here. Not all of you, her brother whispered. She understood. The mountain was not trying to take all of her. She had been giving too much because fear made her hold every path alone. A Stone-Seer was not a road. She was a reader. Soren, she said. The captain answered through battle. Yes? Put your hand on the map. He did not hesitate. A blood-warm palm pressed beside hers. The stone accepted him only a little, enough to hold the palace memory in place. The gray wolf put one paw on the broken quarry vein, and the lower way steadied beneath Ronan's feet. Aurelith exhaled. The stone stopped crawling. For now. She turned her face toward the hall. Anyone who has lost someone to winter fever, place your hand on the stone. Silence. Then the map guard stepped forward. Then a servant. Then the quartermaster's aide. One by one, hands touched the edges of the war table. The map brightened. Not because they could read it, because they could witness. The dead names no longer had to pass only through Aurelith's body. Theron saw the shift. His voice turned lethal. Remove them. No one moved fast enough. Below, Ronan reached the lower vein with the first survivors. Aurelith felt the mountain open toward air. Then Maid Vale's heartbeat faltered. Aurelith's head snapped toward the map. Her mother had stopped near the chamber threshold. Not because she could not move. Because someone else remained deeper inside. A smaller heartbeat. Hidden behind the support beam. A child. Ronan's voice came through stone, strained. There is another. Theron laughed from the dais. Then choose, brother. One more grave. Or your throne. Aurelith felt Ronan turn back into the chamber. At the same time, Theron's hand closed around the crown seat. The throne stone went black. The map split under Aurelith's palms. And the mountain carved one final warning through every witness hand at the table. If the false king sits, the lower way closes. The throne went black before Theron sat. The warning carved itself through the war table. Through Aurelith's stone-stiff hand. Through every witness palm pressed around the map. If the false king sits, the lower way closes. Below the 7th road, Ronan stopped. Aurelith felt him through the mountain, one hand gripping a survivor's torn cloak, the other reaching toward the small heartbeat hidden deeper in the chamber. Her mother, Maid Vale, stood at the threshold, too weak to walk without leaning into the stone that had carried her messages for years. Theron's hand tightened around the crown seat. The lower way began to narrow. Aurelith whispered into the stone, Ronan. His voice came back, strained. I hear you. Save the child. The throne is not worth one more buried body. Silence. Then Ronan moved deeper into the chamber. The mountain accepted the choice with a low pulse. Not forgiveness. Recognition. Theron smiled from the dais. Your king chooses a grave over a crown. Remember that. Aurelith lifted her face toward his voice. We will. The throne stone cracked beneath him. Aurelith pressed her hardened hand flat against the throne symbol carved on the map. Show what crown seat means when it remembers. Palace stone surged upward. For one brutal breath, she felt every oath sworn under that throne. Every blank authority hidden beneath royal ceremony, every time Theron stood behind Ronan wearing loyalty like a cloak while his ring carried law into darkness. The memory tried to climb her arm again. Then another hand covered the map beside hers. The map guard, then the servant. Then Soren, bleeding from the shoulder, slammed his palm down on the carved dais line. We witness, he said. The stone stopped taking only from Aurelith. The throne memory opened across the hall in cold white light. Theron stood in ghost shape beside Ronan after a victory feast. Ronan's hand clasped his shoulder. The blood-right ring passed between them. The hall heard Ronan say, Carry my authority where I cannot. The memory shifted. Theron alone beneath the throne. Blank plates stacked before him. Varric bowing. Fever rolls waiting. Theron pressing the wolf ring to stone again and again. Then the line that damned him rose from the dais itself. Let Ronan wear the victory. I will hold the roads. The generals heard it. The servants heard it. The guards heard it. Theron's face hardened. Victory requires roads. Aurelith's voice turned cold. Then answer for the bodies you paved them with. The dead names rose from the map. Not through Aurelith alone this time, but through every palm willing to hold them. Aurelith Vale. Road laborers. Supply wolves. Quarry sons. Patrolmen. Starved workers. Buried villagers. The hall filled with names until rank had nowhere to stand. Theron tried to sit. The throne refused him. Black stone thrust upward beneath him, not killing, denying. The crown seat cracked open like a mouth that had finally learned to say no. At the same moment, beneath the seventh road, Ronan reached the hidden child. Aurelith felt it. A small body, shallow breath, wolf, blood faint under the skin. Not royal. One of the forgotten lower pack children used to crawl into air shafts too narrow for adults. Ronan gathered the child carefully. The lower way began to close behind him. "Move," Aurelith whispered. "I am." The passage tightened around his shoulders. He had shed armor, blade, cloak, everything that made a king large. Now only guilty weight and living hands remained. Vale's heartbeat thudded against the chamber wall. 3 strikes. A pause. 1 slow beat. Aurelith answered by tapping the same rhythm on the war table. The mountain carried it down. The survivors began moving to the beat. Not marching. Following. Theron recovered near the broken throne and drew a hidden blade. "If I cannot sit, no one leaves with my roads." He lunged toward the map. Soren moved, but he was wounded. Too slow. Theron's blade came down toward Aurelith's hands. She could not move them. If she pulled away, the lower way would close. A gray blur crossed the table. The werewolf took the blade through its shoulder and drove Theron backward with its full weight. The wolf screamed, but did not let go. Soren shouted its name, "Harrow!" And the sound broke. Theron struck the wolf again. But before he could rise, the stone under his boots opened. Not a pit, a memory. Every road he had buried wrapped around his ankles in white light. Aurelith spoke through clenched teeth. "Theron Kaelor, named by road, seal, ring, and witness. Do you deny the grave road?" Theron's eyes blazed. "I built what weak men feared to build." The mountain accepted it. Confession did not always sound like guilt. Sometimes it sounded like pride. White stone climbed over Theron's boots, locking him before the broken throne. Below, Ronan reached the lower river exit. 1 survivor. Then another. Wolves crawled into open air. Men followed. Maid Vale came last before Ronan. 1 arm around the small child, the other pressed to the wall as if thanking the mountain without trusting it fully. Aurelith felt her mother cross the threshold. The lower way opened into dawn. Ronan stepped out after them, bloodied, stripped of armor, carrying no crown, no banner, no proof except the living bodies behind him. The war table released Aurelith's arm. She collapsed forward, but witness hands caught her before she struck stone. Her right hand remained gray to the wrist. Not dead. Changed. A hand that had read too much and survived. Then the western ridge entered the room. Not with snow and rockfall. With witness. Cold white light spread from the war map across the floor, building trenches, wagons, frozen carts, collapsed air shafts, and the chamber where survivors had been kept breathing under the road. 1 by 1, the living witnesses appeared in that light. Hollow-cheeked men, half-starved wolves, lower pack workers, and Maid Vale, thin as a winter branch. Aurelith made a broken sound. Her mother turned toward it. "Litha." Mara crossed the memory-lit floor toward her, stumbling, alive, impossible, and caught her daughter with arms that shook from years under the mountain. Aurelith buried her face against her mother's shoulder. For years, the palace had made her grief small. Winter fever. No body. No proof. No grave lamp. Now her mother held her in the room where the lie had been signed. Across the hall, Ronan stopped before the cracked wolf crest and placed both hands on the war table. "My seal made the grave road lawful," he said. "I did not write every order. I did not see every trench. But I gave blank authority to blood I trusted. And I let victory cover what speed had cost." Aurelith listened. Elian had warned her. Do not let them make him innocent yet. Ronan was not asking for innocence. Good. He turned toward Theron. "You will answer for the roads you buried." Theron smiled with bloodless anger. "And you?" Ronan looked at the dead names glowing under the western ridge. "So will I." The mountain stilled. Not forgiving. Listening. Varric's voice broke from the side. "Majesty, if you open every campaign record, command will collapse." Aurelith turned toward him. "Command already collapsed." "You buried the sound." The witnesses pressed their hands down harder. Every false road dimmed. Every hidden road lit. Every living witness, every dead name, every altered report connected in white lines, until the war map no longer showed victory. It showed a crime. Aurelith touched the cracked wolf crest with her gray hand. Roads lie, she said. The mountain answered through every witness palm. Mountains remember. The dead names lifted above the table like snow that refused to fall. Aurelith Vale's name came first. Then Elian's voice rose, no longer buried. Read us home. Aurelith placed her changed hand on her brother's name. The war hall began to speak the dead aloud. And for the first time, the war map did not show a road to victory. It showed the way home.